Um,
Today's
good.
special guest is Laura Nobles, and she has
Oh,
her own company and employees and everything, which is something that I've never had. Um, Laura, tell the kind folks at home what you do and a sample of kind of the clients that you typically have.
yeah, sure. So I know I've met some of you, so good to see you again and good to see the new faces. Nice to meet everybody. So I'm the CEO of Pazanga Health Communications. We're a full service PR and marketing firm that focuses strictly in healthcare with an emphasis in med tech. And I've been in, marketing and PR my whole career. And I love telling this story about myself. I fell into this completely randomly when I went to college. I went to UC Berkeley, and if you've ever gone to UC Berkeley or a school like that, it's very hard to get your classes, right? And my freshman year, I got a class called rhetoric, and I didn't know that I passed the AP English exam, so I technically didn't need it, but I was terrified to cancel it and try to have to crash other classes and whatnot. Anyway, but I fell in love with it, and it in fact became my major. And it's kind of started my whole career in storytelling, persuasive language, things like that. And started out in tech. And then when the tech bubble burst, landed in healthcare. And I worked in an agency, a big agency for 5 years, and then started out on my own 18 years ago, which I can't believe. Um, but it's been so fun being in this industry, coming from tech, seeing the integration of tech and med tech. And, I didn't coin this term, but, data being the new oil, we've got AI. It's just so interesting, and really blessed to have a wonderful team and great clients. I like to describe what we do as just everything in communication except for investor relations. So we can be an outsourced marketing department for a client. We can be, just a partner with a, existing brand name client. So we've worked with the big ones, the Stryker, Medtronic, things like that, but also a lot of fun startups and emerging brands. So I love what I do. We have a fabulous team. We were virtual before it was a thing. And I'm just really excited to share some things with you today.
We're ready.
All right. Let me see if I can actually share.
Yes, sir. We've got
All
it.
right. Can you see? Oh, that's the wrong
That's
shares.
your Instagram.
I'm showing you later. That's actually part of my presentation, believe it or not.
I think we'd rather see your Instagram.
Yeah, I know, right?
We haven't seen the
Pretty good.
presentation yet, so that's
Okay. All right, guys. Can you see this?
yes. Thank you.
You might ask why I have some random guy jumping on my first slide.
He's happy.
He's happy. He's making progress. He's moving. And that's what we're all about. Pazanga is actually a Lithuanian word. I'm half Lithuanian, and it means progress and achievement. And I just like the way it sounds. So there
Hmm.
you go. So we're always moving forward. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is, brand narratives for med tech companies, and really, it's my favorite subject, which is storytelling. So you can read this quote from Seth Godin, but I think it's really true that, marketing isn't really about the stuff you make, but it's about the stories you tell. And I think, how many on this call are sort of responsible for marketing or in your organization? Anybody want to raise their hand?
All of us.
Yeah, great. Good answer. We all are, right? So we really all have to be able to tell a story about our own brand, whether it's you're talking to a customer, you're trying to hire employees, you're talking to investors. It's really important that you have a solid story. Um, so that is what I'm going to talk about today. And why is storytelling important? All right. Do you all know that we consume about 14 hours of media a day? Is anyone surprised by that?
No, but I'm saddened by it.
I know, right? How many of you have your phone just tell you like your screen time was up 4 hours last week?
Oh, I was nauseated the first time I realized how often I have the phone.
Right.
I don't know though. If I have something running in the background, does that count? Because I don't actually hold my phone that long
I
all the
don't know if Nielsen counts that or not, but the point is, Joe, you're distracted.
I can't even get through this conversation.
I mean, right? So this is why also it's really important to get your story straight. And this is no matter if you're in med tech or another industry, we're all affected. So in our estimation, effective storytelling really humanizes brands. It kind of opens your brand up to customers, your culture, invites them in, and the more human you are as a brand, the more engaged conversation you're going to have with your stakeholder. Effective storytelling also inspires. So one example of this is a little old school, but we all know Nike, just do it, right? So the original idea around that was, we can all be athletes. We can all be our inner athletes. You don't have to be, a professional athlete to aspire to greatness. So, I don't know if any of you've seen the movie that with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but they start out by finding a rookie, right? So anyway, interesting brand. And one aside, all of you know the late great Kobe Bryant. He used to live sort of near us, and we would run into him from time to time. And we were having lunch one day, and he walked into the place, and he's got dark glasses on. It was a gray day, dark glasses, head to toe Nike, black, and it's like, dude, we all know who you are. But
You think he was trying to pass incognito with the sunglasses?
he kind of was. And then he sat down, he was waiting for his order, and there was a college basketball game on, and I'm like, God, I would pay like $1,000 to know what he's thinking because he was watching it. But at any rate, he doesn't have to wear Nike all the time. I'm sure they paid him, but he was a loyal Nike fan. What else does storytelling do? The really important thing is it persuades, right? You want people to do something or believe something, right? And so your story has to, do that. And you want it to motivate and drive action. You want people to purchase your service. You want people to become brand enthusiasts. You want people to, tell their friends, tell their family, hey, you need to try this product or service, actually do something. And again, going back to Nike, you engender loyalty. And here I'm going to do a little non sequitur. How many of you flew Southwest back in, say, the 90s? Anybody? Okay. Do you guys remember when you got on the plane and the first two rows were facing each other?
Yep.
Anybody remember that? And you take off and you could be like staring down the whole plane. And then they'd give you like drink tickets and things like that. And you'd be having a great time with the three people in front of you. And the peanuts, all that good stuff. Obviously the brand has evolved a little bit.
Yeah.
Devolved
is the word you're looking for.
Yes. Well, whoops. Sorry, I went back. Okay. Well, how many of you are upset that they're going to change their seating system? Anybody? Okay.
We have our virtual hands raised.
Okay, because honestly, I was on a flight, and I say this because I used to be loyal to Southwest. We were on a flight, and the people were saying, "Don't do it, don't do it," and the steward was saying, "No, we don't want it either. We don't want it either." And then of course they say, "Well, we did a survey of our customers, and they all want to have assigned seating," which I think is a load of, what. I've been booking trips for the last, like flying this month, next month in October. And every time I go to any major airline, I have to pick the seat, and then it's like 15 more for that and 40 more here. And like, it just kills me. Anyway, that's what not to do, I would say. Anyway, all right. So getting into this next slide that I went too far. So effective storytelling, believe it or not, actually stimulates brain activity. There's a study that was done that had functional MRI done when people were listening to different types of stories, and it was lighting up different areas. And it actually, if it done well, storytelling releases the feel-good hormone oxytocin, believe it or not. So what is storytelling in healthcare? And I think I'm probably preaching to the converted with the people on this call. But really it's about people. I mean, listen to what we just heard about. You're having, a heart valve replacement coming up. I mean, this is some serious stuff. It's about people. It's personal. Effective storing imparts a unique value, right? It creates an emotional connection. When done best, it leverages multiple voices. And really one of the most important things is it's crisp, compelling, and consistent, and delivers a promise. So I'm going to walk through these. So, people gravitate towards stories they can relate to. And I think probably everybody on this call can understand that. And, just again, talking today, just having this personal conversation as we open up here, as I get older, I unfortunately have seen a lot of the healthcare system in my family, from heart disease to Alzheimer's to cancer to even eating disorders, believe it or not. And, when I hear about different technologies that can address some of these things, I am all over it, right? Because I can relate to the need out in the market for, earlier treatment for Alzheimer's, a treatment that actually works, like the understanding of what is actually happening when you have Alzheimer's. So, it's important to make sure that your stories are related to people and have a human element. And this one I love too, it imparts unique value. And this is one of my favorite parts of my job, is to be honest with clients about, like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Yeah.
You're the leader in blah, 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 blah. I'm
And if I say
innovative.
something like, we are excited to announce, I say, fuck you.
Oh my God. No, that's the cardinal rule. I just want to teach everybody just a little thing about press releases. A press release is to share your news, right? So you want to share what's news, and your quote is an area where you can insert opinion. So it's an opportunity to share a message. And when you say I'm excited, of course you're excited. That's like the biggest waste of real estate on the planet, just FYI. But this is really, it's interesting. I was just in Boston with a client. We've been working with them for about 1.5 years, and they have an AI solution for looking at plaque. And
I'm sorry, for looking at
plaque in the heart.
plaque. Okay.
Plaque. And there are 2 other competitors in their space that are the primary dominants. And on the one hand, they're always watching what the competitors are doing. Always watching. Well, they're saying this, and they did a webinar about that, and they had this guy doing this and that, and yes, you need to know what your competitors are doing. But on the other hand, I'm like, what are you doing? Why don't you focus on what you do and stop getting distracted by what they're doing? But at the same time, we were going to be writing some of their website content, and we needed to have a narrative about the company. And so I said, okay, we really haven't talked about that a lot. We talk about the technology. So I went to the 3 different websites of this client, the 2 competitors, and I just did a copy and paste in a Word document. And then I was like highlighting all of the words that were the same exact words across the 3 companies. And, on the one hand, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're all serving the same unmet need, you can articulate it in the same way. But really, if you have something, it should be different, right? And how do you peel that onion back and really figure out how you're different and why it matters, and so what, right? So it's really important. This is, I think, the most important thing we do with our clients, is really try to figure out what is that uniqueness, and try not to be lazy with just pablum words that we hear all the time.
Wow, you are using exact language that I use, the word pablum and lazy.
Yeah, right. Kismet.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I would say to folks that everything we do in medical devices is not a nice to have, it's a have to have. Nobody says, oh, you know what, it'd be nice to have a heart replacement. It'd be nice to, yeah, we should really get new syringe. I don't know. And when you start talking about value analysis committees and things like that, if your stories aren't shake by the shoulders, don't you understand what I'm saying? This is why.
Yeah.
Then I'm busy. This is fine. It's working for us.
Right. It's true. And in fact, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he's got a good technology with a good problem to have. There's a lot of applications, but that's also a problem in that, you need to focus. And it was interesting because he's a surgeon himself who came up with this technology, and it's in neuro, and the doctors understand it. But then he goes to the administrators, and they're like, what? He just realized, I don't have the right story for the administrators. So that's an important point, in that, the narrative you create around your brand should be the same for every audience at the top level. But then, it's very important to have specific messaging for different audiences. And that's also what we hope our clients work on. But it's in
If I may, when you start talking about storytelling, I'm going to steal the screen for a moment and show you.
Oh, okay.
First ad I made back in 2008.
Okay.
cardiac science. And I remember when I conceived it, how
Mhm.
nervous I felt. That like this is like almost edgy. This is like it's so far afield from anything that defibrillator company is doing, and I didn't know if it would get approved. So I'll go ahead and show that to you. There. His heart stopped. Will you save him? And the reason this is a student who fell in the gym, because defibrillators. How many of you on this call have a defibrillator? 2, 3. Okay. It's like, well, what are the chances that someone's going to die in front of me? Well, if you're at a school, you probably, I don't know of anyone who's ever died from cardiac arrest. And here's a kid who, this is binary. You have it or you don't. You save them or you don't. And if you're not protecting your students, like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
And I just remembered, like, this is a story, like something just happened. You are in this position. Are you going to react or not?
Right. That's a great.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to share another.
No, go ahead.
And this one is very different. It's really a long form story. I have to find it here. Sorry. It's over here. Just wasting time. Okay, if I find it, I'll bring it up.
And you know why I can relate to that?
Why?
My mom went into cardiac arrest, must have been 10 years ago, in the middle of the night. And my dad, she said she felt like she was drowning. She was scratching the bed, and my dad hopped to it very quickly. And the firefighters, where the paramedics were there, it took a long time to revive her, but she just turned 81
Mhm.
and she's doing well.
Thank God. Okay. Well, if I call it up, I'll share it with you.
All right. Well, that was a nice aside. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. All right. So we're the leader in blah, blah, blah. Just don't do it. So obviously we're just talking about emotional connection. People who care act. And, it's funny you asked about defibrillator, Joe, because when my mom went through that, we were working with a client that was in critical care, and he sent me a defibrillator for her.
Hmm.
I don't know if she moved with it, but the important point is here's my husband. I'll call him back. The important thing is obviously when you have that emotional connection, when people are driven to action. This one's really important too, because, other people outside your company are going to have more powerful impact in telling your story than you can. So in healthcare, this is often the physician, the KOL, the patient, the administrator, whoever else it is that can say, yes, this technology is awesome. It's saving lives. It's saving money. It's helping population health. All of these things is very important. I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but that's just a very important piece of storytelling, especially in healthcare, where we have to have evidence, data, and people who can attest that the technology works, it's safe, it's effective, but it saves money. It does all these great things that we have to do in healthcare that people that sell shampoo and video games don't have to do. Which I've sold both. Unfortunately, it's very boring.
Mhm.
All right, this is another one of my favorites. So, how do you get recognized? Especially in this noisy environment where we're stuck to our screens, it's repetition. So if a client comes to us and says, hey, I want to put a press release, okay, great. Well, then what else are you going to do? Right? Because you need to have surround sound to reach people these days. And, I say that whether you're, in a PMA study in your years to market or your commercial, in order to get people's attention, you really have to be where they are. So that's where integrated marketing comes along. But it's just important to repeat, 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 repeat. And then, I love the little baby hand. It delivers a promise, right? Again, this is a very personal industry. And this is when I'm going to stop share and go to the Instagram, which I just decided I was going to do yesterday. Actually, it's just kind of fun story. So All right, so does everybody know Hoag Hospital? It's a big hospital here in Orange County. And I have a love-hate relationship with them. They helped my mom when she had really bad arrhythmia a couple of years ago. She has a pacemaker now. They did a great job, but they almost killed my dad. Well, actually, they led to my dad's ultimate demise by
Mhm.
hitting him and doing a lot of awful things. So I have a love-hate relationship with that hospital. However, they have a campaign going on right now that I think is really cool. So if you can see this sort of poster back here or billboard, it says her future in the best hands. And they have this everywhere in Orange County, and they have like different baby, his future in the best hands. And then they have it like on the cover of the Orange County Business Journal and whatever. And it's just a really touching campaign. And so I was Googling yesterday to try to find like, okay, how can I show you guys an example of this ad? And I pulled up its Instagram, and it turns out this is the Instagram of the woman who's right here. And so I'm going to play this. There's no sound, but I thought this was genius. Wait a second. I might have to play it again. Let me try it again, because at the beginning there was some text that said, this is what happens when you've delivered your baby and Hoag wants you to give a testimonial, and it turns into this whole campaign. Let me see if I can get it again. Here you go. Point of view, you're 3 days postpartum and Hoag Hospital has to take your few pictures of your family for the new marketing campaign. And it turns into this. I thought this was a great example because not only, is it a really touching, interesting campaign or like, pulls on your heartstrings, but the fact that this woman made a story out of it herself and put it on Instagram, right? I just thought that was totally genius. So I wanted to share what I thought was a great version of storytelling. Anybody have any other storytelling examples you want to share that you think are cool?
Well, I just would like to go back to your previous point about just the consistency in the storytelling.
Mhm.
My dad owned the Oriental Rug Store when I was like most of my life.
Yeah.
And he was like, we were all, you had to do print, you had to do TV, you had to do all the channels, even back then, before
Mhm.
social media. But
Yep.
I remember one time he added certain types of furniture into the store.
Uh-huh.
And he spent a year on the advertisement, like, hey, we've got furniture too. And like, don't just come here for rugs. And he spent a full year on it. And then he kind of gave up and decided not to carry furniture anymore. And right after he did that, everybody was coming in looking for just furniture and not rugs.
Oh,
And
no.
and so it just like was so poignant with me that like when I started my business, and it was just like, you have got to like show up every day until somebody shows up, because people don't wake up needing a 510K in the morning,
Yeah, right.
know
Yeah,
Eh,
exactly.
but you do this every day, 5 days a week for, now we're probably the better part of 8 years that I've been doing this, the social media thing.
Mhm.
And then when people do need a 510K, they've been listening to me 5 days a week for
Mhm.
8 years,
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Very, very true. Very, very true. So this is my last slide. You can create your own legend or not. And that concludes my presentation.
I found the thing I was looking for. I'll
Oh,
share.
okay.
I actually found other. I put together a few boards when I came up with his heart stopped,
Mhm.
and I actually found one that is even harder hitting. That they said was just too far. This isn't it. If you could save
Oh.
7,000 students, would you? How about saving just one? 7,000 kids will die this year from sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow.
Which kid lived? Answer below. Both are teens, both had sudden cardiac arrest at school. One had a defibrillator, one didn't. Can we say that the AED made the difference? No. But for around $1,500, would your school like to find out the hard way?
Mm. Interesting.
That's my defibrillator that I have at home, by the way.
The Power Heart?
Yeah.
Good boy. Do you have a fire extinguisher? Good. Now wake up and get an AED.
That's cute.
This next one is the one that people said, okay, no, that's just too much. But I thought it was the most impactful one. How much is Greg Moyer's white life worth? About $1,500 too much.
Hmm.
He saved $1,500, but he's dead.
Mm.
Um,
Was that too edgy for them too?
This one was too edgy.
Yeah.
This one,
They
they
used the
could-
one that you
compelling.
showed us first.
yeah, the one that I showed first.
Mhm.
How does the room feel about this ad, which never ran?
It's extremely compelling.
It is, but it probably implies some sort of legal thing around the school,
Um,
some sort of liability.
Mhm.
I don't,
It
I
might
don't
be
think that
perce-
would go anywhere, Michelle.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
it
I
might
could see-
be perceived as accusatory, like accusing in the sense that someone made a decision that 1,500 was too much. And we don't know the details behind the story of
Right.
why there wasn't a defibrillator, so.
And I'm sure Laura will agree with me here. At a minimum, we're talking about it.
Mhm.
It's provocative enough.
Mhm.
I wrote a blog post, I don't know, 7 years ago or whatever. And something happened in the news that was consuming the media. Everyone was talking about this thing. And I wrote about it. And then I said, now tell me again, what's your medical device? When we're telling these stories, we're not competing against Stryker. We're competing against the world,
Right,
competing
exactly.
against Ukraine
Mhm.
and Gaza. And
Not to mention the election.
not to mention the election. I avoided that topic specifically.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Here's another one. I don't remember. I think it's the Ben Franklin rule or something where you put a lot on one side and a little on the other. If handling an ECG only took 4 steps, how many more patients could you see? I get an ECG order, I print it out, I type it in, I run the test, print 2 copies, I put one in the patient chart. I send one to cardiology. Cardiology finds the ill report, cardiology matches the 2, cardiology puts both in your inbox. You overread it, I have the notes transcribed, I print them out, I send them back to you, you approve them, I photocopy them twice, I put one in the patient chart, I send one to billing. Or the order's already in the system, I run the test, you overread and hit send, it goes to the chart and billing automatically, and you see 3 more patients.
That's great.
And then this one, I think will get a mixed reaction. I ran it because it was unlike anything else. It was a real story. I wrote a real story. Here's our story about you. And it was in a nursing magazine. You are the caregivers. You genuinely care about your patients and it shows. You invite them into your homes to get better with you. You bring a card or a cupcake to celebrate birthdays and you don't want any payback. It's what you do for friends. You're happy to see them when they arrive. You're glad to see them return to a full life. Your patients are at a delicate and potentially frightening point in life, and they need you more than they've ever needed anyone. You are their chance to get back to normal. They want you, your eye contact, your smile, your friendly encouragement. What does the chart say? What does this mean? What does that mean? We love that about you, and that's why we have built this thing. It's a long lead in to before you get to the benefits, but otherwise it'd just be a feature benefit ad, and it's like, okay. What do you think about this approach, Laura?
I mean, these are like the people that are, I think nurses have a very hard job,
Mm-hmm.
very hard job. They're very burnt out. And, to appeal to them this way, I think is really interesting. It's very personal. They can relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like it. It is long, but it's, if you're inclined to read, it's good. And you've got the good headlines and things like that. I mean, I do like it. But the thing that I think about when I think about nurses, has anybody ever been to a nursing trade show? Anybody? It's so fun. I haven't been to one in a long time, but the client I had in critical care nursing, we were exhibiting, and these are nurses who they don't get out and they don't get celebrated and all this. And so, the first day at the trade show is all the giveaways.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they avoid the Sunshine Act or whatever, but it's all about the swag the first day. And, you can go shopping. I can go shopping anywhere, but I'm like, you can buy clogs, you can buy like this, that, and the other. It's just anyway, but they appreciate so much when they're celebrated because they're kind of the people behind the scenes that don't get all the accolades. They don't have a, they're not a doctor. So I like that you appeal to them that way and how important they are and how appealing to their humanity. I like that.
And then I'll show you one of the worst examples I've ever seen
Okay. Hopefully I didn't do it.
of what not. No, you didn't do it. I'm absolutely certain. This is a blog post I wrote called Horrible Medical Device Marketing from Horiba Medical. I know by writing this post, I will never, ever, ever get any work from Horiba. But
When
this
did you write
marketing
this?
effort
When
is
did you
so
write this?
bad.
Can I ask you when you wrote this?
I think 2012, maybe.
Okay. All right. Keep going. I have a funny story about this.
But this marketing effort is so bad, I have to share it with you in an effort, my faithful readers, to ensure you never, ever, ever, ever write anything like this. It reads, introducing the next generation of innovation, which will revolutionize the way we provide total solutions for healthcare in the future. What? So I was at HIDA last week, and Horiba, an exhibitor, rented the inside of the elevator doors for their marketing message. The first time I saw it, it didn't sink in. What did I just read? I must not have read it correctly. The second time, I really tried to uncover some nugget about the company, digesting each word, because surely no one would spend thousands of dollars to say absolutely nothing. And this is what I got. Introducing, oh, maybe a new product. The next generation, oh, an update of an existing product. Of innovation. Yeah, I get it. So what is it? Which will revolutionize. Really? Still no answer? The way we provide total solutions. Okay, this is a joke, right? For healthcare. Well, duh, we're at a healthcare show. I got the healthcare part before we even started. The picture of the doctor gave it away. In the future. I can't believe what I just read. What? That's it. That was the ad.
Yeah. So can I tell you, I've worked with this company.
Before or after that travesty?
After. So we still do occasional work for them as my designer, but we did a messaging exercise with them. They are, what I would say is they are, if you look across sort of just healthcare companies, they're in a more commoditized space than some other, clients.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked with them. We interviewed a bunch of their customers. We interviewed their team, and what we heard was their customer service is amazing. So that was kind of like, I mean, their products have to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of what they do. But if they can deliver it to you better than the competition, if they pick up their phones, if they, if there's an issue, they fix it the same day. I heard of one sales rep who like created some kind of in his garage, some kind of I'm going to bastardize this, but he created something. The client needed some kind of structure to hold the product or whatever, and he created a shelf or something. I don't know, like people going over and above kind of thing, right? And we gave them some suggestions about like their website, less copy, and that's something I should talk about also, and having more people on there. And what happened is they have a Japanese owner. Medical is not all they do. They have automotive and a whole bunch of stuff. And then they have an office in France. And it's impossible to do anything in the US because of the lockhold of France and Japan. So ultimately, we weren't very successful. We helped them with their brochures and things like that and try to get them out of that speak. But I can totally attest to that. And it's the worst. I see innovation, revolutionize, transform, and it doesn't say anything. Solutions is one of my favorites also. So it's just those words that you just try to get more specific, right? Like, what do you do? The other piece, and I didn't bring this up and I meant to, is less is a lot more when you're talking about marketing and PR language. We had a client the other day, they need to create a page for this website and they sent me 1,300 words and
Oh
graphs.
my goodness.
And I'm like, this is not gonna work. So now we're working on it. It's gonna be a couple of different pages. We're breaking up the copy and things like that. But people don't read, myself included. I mean, how many of you scan when you read stuff, right?
Mhm.
When was the last time you really sat down and read something like
John
really?
Smith adds Empower has to be on that banned list.
What's that?
Empower.
Empower. Okay, yeah. Yeah. But that's another thing. And it's not easy. I mean, myself included. I mean, all of our team, it's hard to write less. And
Harder.
it's harder. And you really have to be focused. That's another reason why it's so important to get your story straight. Because people tend to just blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And that just your message kind of hides. It's like a marshmallow on snow,
When I'm writing important copy,
Uh-huh.
I typically end up going with like my third version. Like even as to the point as I can get, I
Mhm.
get even more to like I'm like, oh, instead of saying of this, I can put that word as the adjective just to make it a
Mhm.
little shorter.
Mhm.
Here's another that I mean, this is such a hot point for me that I do this kind of you're killing me, people. And I receive copy like this all the time. In the redacted medicine market, medical device manufacturers will need to address many challenges, including how to navigate regulatory compliance efficiently to save time and reduce costs, and incorporating sophisticated outcome-based compensation models for patient-centric targeted therapies.
Is that one sentence?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the global precision medicine market, device manufacturers will need to address many challenges. Manufacturers face challenges, really, including learning how to navigate regulatory compliance efficiently to save time and reduce costs. Wait, slow down there. You're saying people want to save time and they want to reduce costs, but they have to do it efficiently? I can see why that would be important. And incorporating sophisticated outcome-based compensation models for patient-centric targeted therapies. You mean how hospitals get paid? You mean for treating patients? Your copy is boring enough. Do you have to make it hard to understand too? For God's sakes.
Right.
Luckily, we're just entertaining people at this point because no one on this call does anything like that. Or if they do, they need to call Laura Nobles to have them help.
If they do, Joe's likely already sent them a message saying, are you stupid? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, well, I have my own special approach to things. I'm an acquired taste.
Very subtle. Yeah.
Rich Stockton, what have you got to say?
Yeah, I've got a question. We all have those things, where our service is going to get something done in less time, save money, etc. So we could all easily fall into in phone conversations and actual formal ads, we could fall into all of this stuff. So Laura, what's the best approach to, and I think I probably saw some examples of it earlier. I had to actually jump off of this computer, get onto another computer because I had a Windows issue. And what is the best way to say these things, but not fall into word salad?
Right. Well, it takes discipline. It just takes discipline. And the process we go through with clients, and I think I mentioned it, is take a look at what your competitors are saying. Well, also first understand your audience. That's like a no-brainer. Who are you talking to? What are their pain points? How can you appeal to them? How can you make them how can you be the hero to your stakeholder, right? So that's where you have to start. And then how do you do it differently? And that is looking at what your competitors are saying. And maybe your competitors all do the same thing that you do, but why should they work with you? And you have to come up with that. And then you have to sort of, you have to talk, but you have to walk the talk. That's the other piece, is that you can say, like, it's really funny. So that one client I was talking about in Boston, from what I hear, one of the companies they compete with is horrible to work with. And so they had this other marketing agency that came up with this message of, we're your true partner. And I'm like, Yeah. So that's not something you should have to say. You have to walk that, right? So I don't know, does that answer your question? But it takes discipline. I mean, tell me what you do. What's your business about?
Okay, what I do is I help people who are designing and trying to bring their product into production to
Mhm.
make sure that they don't run afoul of sometimes their own inability to assemble it or to design it so that it can be quoted cheaply or made reliably.
Mhm.
And I help them, I help apply what I know to their design and their ideas. So entropy does not squash them.
Mhm. Okay. So can you tell me what their pain point is in your point of view?
Um, it can fall in a number of areas. Design knowledge is way too general. I had one customer who they weren't on most of their injection molded parts, they were getting no quotes. So the injection molders were saying, no, we will not quote your part. And it turned out they were doing some things that were making it nearly impossible or impossible to do that. I had another customer who had a device and they said, well, here, we'd like you to do a manufacturability study on this. And while I was doing that, I found out the device didn't work. And so in that instance, we had to completely rebuild it in the existing side package that they had, which nobody had ever done historically before. But typically it's much more settled down. They pretty much have an idea how they want to do a product. They've got their IP, but they're worried that the way some of the things are designing are going to wear out prematurely, or they'll be a little bit hard to manufacture, causing line shutdowns and things like that, or accumulating costs because their subcontractors are going to have higher scrap that they have to account for in the per piece, per assembly cost. So they often start out with a great idea, really good IP. They're the people who are part of gradually changing the medical device environment for the better. But they just want to make sure that they get there and don't run afoul of all of those random little design problems that plague people. And so I help them make sure that
Is it fair to say they don't know what they don't know what they don't know?
in the design area, that's often true.
Mhm.
But I get some sophisticated customers who are aware that they haven't done the statistical studies on their production. They haven't done the analysis to make sure. They just have a very good idea, which works well if you do it exactly right every time. So I try to get them from Apollo 11 prices down into Elon Musk prices, or
Okay.
lower.
I like your analogy. That's good. So why should they work with you?
Several reasons. One, besides having all of that wonderful, great knowledge, I'm a pretty good guy. The other reason is, and I'm okay to work with people. People like working with me, and we have a little bit of fun while we're doing a whole lot of work. But the other reason is that often they're not sure about the scope, and they don't want to spend 3 months defining the scope of their project. So they'd really rather work on a per hour basis. But the problems that you can run into with that. You can have projects go out of control. You can not know where they are. So what I offer is I've got tools that give them a day-to-day update on what's going on, where we are, how much it's costing them, and the results they can expect to achieve. And I've developed that onto a little app that they can basically just pull up on their cell phone, or they can pull it up on their PC or Mac, and they can have a real-time idea of what's going on with the product. So a lot of times they don't want to trade one form of random problems for another form of random problems, which would be they don't know what their subcontractors are doing. So I realized they have 3 or 4 or 5 people like me, a guy working in electronics and software and firmware and various other things, and they've got to keep track of a lot of us. So I make sure that I stay very easy for them to track on their schedule, not mine, and that they know exactly what's going on.
Rick does a nice job here of summarizing, like right up front, what his point of difference is. And my favorite example about someone who, I wouldn't say that regulatory service is a commodity, but there are a lot of people out there doing it. Michelle starts with, this is her about page, 5 stages of regulatory compliance grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Her grief counselor. This is R&D versus quality. She infuses her site with personality,
Mhm.
weaknesses, anything barbecued, and tequila, lots of tequila, to humanize who she is, because you're going to be working with this person. I wrote this a while ago too. I just want to impart this for folks. You make me blush. You really think I'm the strongest, best, expert, etc.? Well, I wrote these things. I care more about my testimonials than the person who wrote them. And when I write, I care more than they. I want each quote to be incremental. If everyone said Joe is handsome, we get it, he's handsome. But is he smart? So we want handsome and smart in there. And it's faster to get someone to sign off on it. So on my page, again, this is showing personality, but not only do I have a list of things that I largely said about me, but I highlight so people don't read, they can just glance.
Yeah,
And the other thing,
exactly.
it's like, oh, look, there's Eddie. It just goes on and on and on, and no one is going to, that's the point. I don't expect people to read this, but it's like, okay, I get it, you're good.
Right.
There's a lot of people who can vouch for you. And if you can do that, I think that really helps your story, Rick, about, yeah, I can save you time and save you money, which is the common thing. It's like, why should I choose you? And I think in storytelling and applying, appealing to someone on a level, Michelle quipped, like, oh, well, Joe just will tell you that you suck. Okay, well, that doesn't work for everybody. Some people are like, you're an asshole. And I'm like, I sure am, but I'm your asshole if you want me. And I'm, doing this for you to cut through all of the platitudes and, empowering the recovery of the solutions. It's like, just talk to me like a human.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds to me like you're selling sort of, for lack of a better word, confidence.
About what?
No, I'm talking about Rick.
Oh.
Because, these people want to know their problems are going to get fixed. They're not going to screw up. Right.
Yep.
And
They want to
so,
know they'll get there. For
yeah,
sure.
that you have confidence and you're transparent. That's another, I don't know how your competitors are, but that's really interesting to me that you created an app just to let your clients know. Is it, you said on a day-to-day basis?
And they could look at it every 5 seconds if that was their thing. They really could.
Mhm.
And they'll know where we are on the project. And it starts very basic, because I know they don't want to, lots of my customers, they don't want to use up all their time and spend their money on having me write reports. So I start with something basic, and they can say, well, I need to know twice as much detail as that. Not a problem. I'll make sure that you get it. But people are a whole lot happier if they have somewhere to start, and they can modify it and say, yeah, a little more, or turn it up to 11, or no, this is too much, turn it down to 2. And then they can sort of have an idea of what they really like. But the big thing I'm doing is solving their problems. But if they have a horrible time with me solving their problems, then that's distracting them from the higher things that they really have to do to get this thing out.
Yeah.
So if they're having a pretty good time, if they're going, oh yeah, Rick's doing this and he's here, no problem, then they can worry about other people.
Right. Yeah. So when your customers give you like an attaboy, what do they say? Like, what do they appreciate about you when they give you good feedback, for example?
A lot of times it's just some expression of relief, because there's usually been some problem they couldn't
And you can
they
use
couldn't
that.
really deal with. But it's
Yeah.
not that nobody else on the face of the earth could solve their problem. It's just that maybe they'd have an impossible time finding someone who could solve all their problems.
Rick,
And
maybe the way that Michelle has her grief page, you can have your
Yeah.
relief page, and you can have client after client after client, like just the word relief, like
Yeah.
he just took care of it. And that's
Right,
something that
exactly.
we can relate to.
Right.
A bonus for people who stayed until the very end of the call. If you wait long enough, Elizabeth Friedman will put on her camera, so you get to see her in all her glory. The next 2 weeks are regulatory in nature. Michelle is covering medical device claims, staying out of trouble with FDA and FTC. And the following week, Rob Packard is going to tell us about new FDA human factors guidance.
Ah.
So for you regulatory heads out there, we're talking riveting stuff. And for those of you who celebrate Labor Day, enjoy your long weekend. for Joe Hage and Joe Hage Enterprises. This has been Joe Hage with a solid assist from Laura Nobles. Thank you, Laura. Please
Thanks,
come
Laura.
back,
Oh, it's my pleasure. Really fun
Have an
time.
awesome weekend.
and we'll see you again soon. Enjoy
Thank
the
you
long
all.
weekend, folks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.